We're going to now move on to Taekyung from South Korea, and she's going to talk to us about the power of female universities as a women-only place, a place only for women. Taekyung is a radical feminist and student. She belongs to Women's Human Rights Campaign South Korea. She did volunteer work for anti-digital sexual abuse, and she introduces the radical feminism and the lesbianism of South Korea to the world. So welcome, Taekyung, and over to you.
I joined today's session for introducing the ability of women's universities as a place only for women in the rise of radical feminism in South Korea. I guess today participants are already familiar with the phase of radical feminism movement in Korea. The movement, especially around 20s, young women, such as boycotting men or men's bodies, or escape the corset movement. In the context, corset means all stuff that sexualize a woman's body, and revealing digital sexual crimes to the public issue. Obviously, some online communities like Megalia or Roma did play a major role in the movement. Also, as a physical place, women's universities have done something very meaningful, and today I'm going to talk about those briefly. By the way, the concept of educational institutions only for single sex is literally rampant in Korea. There are lots of middle schools and high schools only for girls or only for boys, and there are universities and colleges only for women. The historical reason for it is not important today. The main point is that about 800,000 girls get educated and spend their daily life free from boys every year. And more than 600,000 women are currently attending institutions of higher education only for women. I had also entered girls' high school, and now I'm entering women's university. Even though each country has differences, I prepared this presentation to show the possible things that can be happened or that can be done when young women collectively occupy their own spaces. It would not be difficult to imagine the role of universities in protest wave when we see it in our great and small history. Young, vigorous, and ambitious students always want a better tomorrow than today and feel thirsty for breaking bad habits for their benefits. That is natural. Historically, the students attending women's universities in Korea perceive and resist the male violence against women. And 2016 is the year when the necessity of radical feminism in daily life within young women arose on the internet. Subsequently, female universities also took the role as spaces for debate to take the movement further. The discussion and utilization of feminism and lesbianism varies slightly between each university, and I will talk about this mainly based on my school, Seongshin Women's University. At first, it was very urgent to protect our place from men's invasion. It might be easy to imagine the reason. Men are always willing to visit female unis, and they have a voyeuristic interest in watching young women's bodies and enjoy the situation when they get a lot of look from them, look from young women. And there were guidelines and rules for safety made by the institutes. As an example, the male visitors can enter only the first floor or the square of the campus, but it is practically not enough to protect the space from the potential crimes of men. So the students made some rules themselves at first, and they had reached agreements with security of the unis, local police station, and a district office. The first rules, it is just a settlement between students. So invite male acquaintances, male family members, or male partners like boyfriend or husband, only with a reasonable and rational reason, such as moving heavy luggage or celebrating graduation. The second one is once a month or upon request, local police and district office staffs must inspect women's toilet in the university to check if any male visitors or male staffs or male faculties have installed spy cameras in the toilet. If you have heard about spy cameras crimes in South Korea, it is also easy to understand why. And the last one, like sleeping rooms and students' unions building, some spaces that require particularly weighted protection from potential threats from men, do not allow men's interests without security. Even male professors and male exchange students are not allowed to enter. Because of men's threats and their crimes in the past among the students, the negative perception of men's invasion into female colleges has been firmly established. There was an issue between 2019 winter to 2020 spring. One transgender student who got sex change surgery to get female body passed a women's university. Thankfully, because of well aware about the unsafeness and dangerousness, students were able to voice their opposition to the first case of a transgender being admitted to their university. Afterwards, the student voluntarily withdrew his application, but the whole students who speak opposition at the university were strongly demonized by gender identity adherents. But if we view this as a successful defense against men's intrusion into space for women, there is no need to be discouraged. Agendas of radical feminism and lesbianism among the students settled to normal value is the main feature of women's universities in Korea, and clubs have enabled this result. In the year of 2018, there were only radical feminism clubs with a few people, and their action became the beginning point that the ideas of radical feminism and lesbianism were spread to other students. They constantly showed the life of a woman without corset, all stuff that sexualized women's body, like long hair or makeup or dress high heels or weight loss without healthy reason, like that, and show the value of solidarity with other women, like attending protests together, and shared their articles and installed public advertisements against the problematic male-dominated society. Since then, small feminist clubs have emerged within certain faculties. They study misogyny issues in society related to their major and share the results with other students. For example, the Feminism Club of Department of Law studies and shares how incompetent the Korean judiciary is in protecting female victims. In the case of the Department of Nursing, it strongly condemns the image of sexually objectified nurses and corrects for sexual knowledge. Also, that it provides the necessary information about menstrual cramps, like that, to other students. Currently, most clubs and academic societies in the female universities that focus on various goals have started operating with the concept of radical feminism. With various purposes, they are centered on women's solidarity and focus on the discovery and growth of women's identity, even if the club's name doesn't include feminism, such as students' councils or football club or esports club, like that. Personally, these are the most interesting things that I brought for today. As I said earlier, various clubs help to let us know how we can utilize radical feminism in various sections of studies or of societies, but without the constraints of time and space, students' executive or students' only application connect their life with the radical feminism easily. So this application named Every Time. So every university in Korea has their own community platform in this application, and the platform can only be used by current enrolled students and graduates on one university. So in the case of female colleges or female universities, all users are women. So despite using online, it has the benefit that students can share their private information or important or big or small information free from men's interference. Until now, many discussions and solidarity have been achieved through this means of communication, through these apps, and it has been possible to raise up the agendas of radical feminism to normalcy. However, there were many conflicts between students before this became possible. At first, the rules were strongly settled, which must not be posted on this app, especially about male partners like boyfriend or husband, or makeup, or like about the corsets. And at the moment, like early 2018, the majority of students that called themselves liberal feminists, they thought sexual liberation is liberating, and smoking makeup with skin pure outfits appeared to depict confident and powerful, strong women. So in the beginning, there was a long conflict between students, and it took almost a year to get their agreement. For gaining their agreement, the strategies were quite childish and earthy. Mainly, they were ridicules about Korean men, like such as their average penis length, or their ugly face, or their nefarious personalities. So with the generalizations of the images of Korean men, the idolized male's body and ability of boyfriends have totally collapsed. And students got used to the disgusting, weak, and negative image of men, and also the students got used to the life without men. The second one was continuous exposure, the form of the women's life with radical feminism. So the feminist students choose the strategies displaying students' pictures breaking away decorative labor. Decorative labor means spending time, money, and their health for decorating themselves. And they displaying various achievements for studies, workout, and career, for giving motivation to other friends or other students. And also they displaying the various forms of love that women can exchange with each other, more beyond the sexuality. So with those strategies, excessive makeup or excessive dress up of women has become very awkward, at least in the campus. Also, students began to think that they were no longer the weak one, but merely victims of systemic discrimination. What this change means is that their conviction that their achievements must be possible leads them out of helplessness and develops their self-esteem. Finally, they become collectively convinced that they no longer need to love men. This shift in thinking of young women who choose to bond with women rather than men is, in other words, the natural acceptance of lesbianism in their daily life. In this context, the most of Korean young students or young women thought lesbianism as a kind of relationship between women and other women with deep solidarity. So after going through those previous steps or process, now there is a movement making community platforms sharing economic and residential information for women who have decided not to get married. I have no idea how welfare policies for unmarried women are prepared in other countries, but Korea still lacks welfare policies for single-person households, so this attempt is more meaningful. Other than that, the attempt we are most focused on is to be reborn as a political being. I interpreted becoming a political being as becoming a subject that can share practical and strategic solidarity for women outside of school or outside of college, and becoming a subject that enable young women's voices to influence society and politics. As an example of this, recently one student reported by email to various foreign media about the phenomenon of mass bullying by the Korean male public towards female archers with her short hair at the Tokyo Olympics. And it was reported like this. And another movement is to encourage other students to comment on articles pointing out that they were mostly written by men and proportion of female comments was always low. As this has only just begun, it is not yet known what results of such an attempt will be. However, it is expected myself that this will also be a spark for meaningful change. It is the end of today's presentation, and I hope I can share the meaningful results and other perceptions like criticism between radical feminist students like today. So thank you for listening.